It looks like Vic Fangio has more control over the situation when it comes to in-season trades for this defense, okay? And a lot was said from Vic Fangio when pressed by Dave Zangaro about this trade deadline and what it means to the Eagles and how they are treating it. It sounds like they are changing their ways, changing their philosophy on it. So we have a lot to talk about that. Obviously, the defensive stats post by Isaiah Rodgers going in for Slay, and a lot more going forward. Lot to speculate on and really talk about where I know where this is going. So let's get straight into the deuce. This video is sponsored by BetUS. It has been a rough road for the Philadelphia Eagles this season for all Eagle fans. Will the Eagles rise to the occasion or continue to play down to the competition? If I'm going all in, giving it my all for a Super Bowl, I'm going to bet $500 and get $7,000 back at the end of the year, and we still stay true to the team that we believe in. But will the problems continue? We will find out. Make sure to check out BetUS. Get a 150% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 with promotion code YouTube150. I want to thank BetUS for sponsoring this live stream or video, and let's get back to the content. All right, so we're going to start this off with a banger right here because I feel like we did get somewhat of an answer from Vic Fangio. This was a question asked by Dave Zangaro at the press conference the other day about the direction the Eagles are going in regarding to the defensive side, where Eagle fans all over the world are saying that the Eagles need a pass rusher, an edge rusher, something of that sort. But are they paying top dollar on top of trading big draft compensation? Are they renting an expensive player, or will they actually go out and get somebody that they could produce for a few years? And this was the answer by Vic Fangio. Said, asked if he's pushing for deadline trade at any spot. Fangio said no. He said, yeah, I mean, it's hard to improve your team drastically this time of the year. I think if you look at some of those trades over the years, they really haven't had the effect some teams were hoping for. And yes, guys, the track record for Howie Roseman is not good when it comes to in-season trades. Okay, so we'll just go over them. Jahan Dotson hasn't really worked out. A 3rd and a 7th round pick, whatever it was. I'm very disappointed in the way they've been treating Jahan Dotson ever since he's gotten here. As if you don't treat your wide receiver threes like anything right now, or don't get them involved to see what they could potentially do. We know what Jahan Dotson could do, but God forbid you have a wide receiver injury, which we've had a couple of them this year for multiple games, and they really didn't get anybody involved at wide receiver. So that one kind of annoys me a little bit. Kevin Byard, waste. Robert Quinn, 4th round pick, total waste. Total waste. Golden Tate, total waste. I mean, that was a different situation, obviously, where the Eagles needed wide receiver. I think that was 2019. I think that was the year where literally we had Greg Ward, and I don't know if that was the Travis Fulgham year, or that was the year where really Wentz put the team on his back. We had to win out the rest of the month to win the NFC East, get into a wild card game, or I think it was the wild card game, I think against Seattle. I could be wrong. I forgot what year. 18 or 19. I think it was 19. I could be wrong though. My memory is kind of going crazy. But I think the last in-season trade the Eagles had successful with was Jay Ajayi in 2017. I think they gave up a 4th round pick for him, which was probably the most surprising one, out of left field type trade on top of the running backs that we had that we were actually playing well at the time. So in-season trades haven't been great. So this is another thing that Fangio said. He said, unless it's a trade where you're getting a guy that you're going to have for a few years, so it's more of a bigger trade than swapping guys, trading a 6th for a 7th, those type of things, okay? Fangio would rather have a young player that he could produce for a few years, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have no issue with that. Max Crosby, Myles Garrett. It seems like the Eagles might be changing their ways when it comes to in-season trades. And I feel like Vic Fangio has a lot of pull regarding this defense because realistically, guys, like as much as we want edge rusher, like getting a guy like Travon Walker would probably be the smartest decision. I was kind of on board of getting Zadarius Smith from the Browns just because he might be older, but if you want to rent him for the year, and not extend him, then just for an extra luxury or somewhat that was something that we really need on that edge, I really didn't have a problem with that too much. I didn't think I thought Myles Garrett was more of a sure it could happen over Max Crosby, where Max Crosby at this point, I don't think the Raiders are even getting rid of him right now. Von Miller, I had no interest in. Zadarius Smith was probably the only guy. But if they're changing their philosophy, and I don't think Howie Roseman has any control over this, I think he's letting Vic kind of decide what he wants to do. And I think they go after a rookie that's on his last year of his deal, cheap. Okay, and potentially they could re-sign him for less money next year, or barely, not even a big contract. Travon Walker came off of a 17-sack season the year before, not really doing too well this year, but could play that outside linebacker role. Could be a nice edge rusher. To see what he looks like in this on this defensive line. So it's going to be really interesting. I don't know where this is going, but it seems like they won't be going after the big time trade. It seems like they will go after a player that they would rather produce. And I get that and I understand that, because why waste picks? I think with the Jahan Dotson trade right now, they wasted a 3rd round pick and then some, a 6th or a 7th, whatever they gave up in that trade. And they don't even use him. He's got 30 something yards for the year in 7-8 games. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's already enough they already ignore that wide receiver 3 position the last few years and don't even give these guys opportunities. So that's a whole nother discussion for another time. But it looks like swapping picks type trades, depth purposes is where they're going to go. But like I said, it's not going to be Zadarius Smith. It's not going to be any of these other guys. It could be offensive line depth. It could be cornerback depth has been a big rumor as of right now, but I think they're good at corner right now. We'll be talking more in the video about corner in this video. But wide receivers definitely off the table. I don't know why wide receivers were connected for a while. Seems that has died down a little bit. But getting somebody at a cheaper rate that they can produce for the next few years, that necessarily isn't having a great year this year, but potential. Like I have to trust Vic Fangio on this one, because honestly, he brought Zach Bond, a role player from the Saints with a couple picks last year. Wasn't a big time player for the Saints last year. Flashed in his coverage, flashed in his pass rush. He was an edge rusher transformed into an outside linebacker. And look what literally week 8 of the NFL season, the Kobe Dean and Zach Bond are your top tier linebackers graded, okay, which is absolutely insane right now. So maybe we have to trust Vic Fangio, and I think we like to trust Vic Fangio more than Howie Roseman. So Howie Roseman just saying, I think we should get this guy, and then they just trade for him and it doesn't work out, or giving a lot of draft capital for a player that's going to be here for the rest of this year and then just to go somewhere else, would rather. Because realistically, you're losing Brandon Graham from retirement. If he actually goes, if the Eagles want him back, he'll come back, but he's not playing for another team, so he'll rather retire than play for another team. Josh Sweat on a restructured deal, $13-14 million fully guaranteed. He's definitely gone. Bye-bye, Josh Sweat. Disappointing season from him. Bryce Huff, bad signing so far. He's been producing the last couple games, but can it get better? Is he catching his stride? No idea. But I think Nolan Smith has been the one that's been the most surprising for me, and hoping that, with 2.5 sacks in 3 games, fantastic. But you're losing Milton Williams on the defensive line. You might lose Milton Williams. Moro Jomo's been playing a lot better. And, the DTs, I think they're getting pressure, but, numbers don't stick out to you. Out too much at DT, but you're losing a few on this defensive line after this year. And the Bryce Huff thing, I wonder what they're going to do. Are they really going to keep him for the next few years? Are they going to try to find a loophole to get out of this contract? I have no idea. But I think, they want to produce a guy and get a guy that's flashing right now that can help in a rotation. And then, obviously next year probably will have a bigger role. Just depends on who it is. Travon Walker would probably be the number one name, in my opinion, right now, where, Howie Roseman, all he has to do is make the call. Even though if he's not on the trade block, Howie Roseman will make the call and see what they could do. Since the Jags aren't playing well, probably a good opportunity to go in there and say, hey, we'll offer you this. We'll swap picks or something for him. They just paid Trevor Lawrence, so maybe that makes more sense going forward. Let me know what you guys think about this whole situation at the trade deadline. Not going to be for a top edge rusher, potentially could be for a guy that produce. And I would and honestly give Jalen Hunt more snaps. Jalen Hunt, where's the promise of him getting more snaps? I don't know how many snaps he had with the defensive line last week. I don't even know if I saw him last week, to be honest with you. Jalen Hunt needs more of an opportunity. I think he's being treated unfairly a little bit. So some guys are slowly catching their stride, and some guys aren't really getting opportunities, and some guys are not going to be here next year. So why not make a trade to produce a guy? So that's where we're at with that situation as of right now. And speaking of the defense for Vic Fangio, because this is strictly just a defensive video right now, since the bye week for Vic Fangio, first in points allowed at 12, first in yards allowed per game, 214, not bad. Second in sacks per game, second EPA play around -0 to 165, which is interesting. First in defensive success rate, 35.1%. Fifth in red zone scoring percentage, 40%. Not bad. Seems like I don't know, that talk between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and really getting this whole team back together and getting back to what we should be doing. This has been a team that's been growing every week. They haven't got too hot too early. They're gradually getting hot, but not too hot too fast. But defense especially. And I think obviously the biggest upgrade for this defense as of right now has been Cooper DeJean, 100%. I don't even know if this guy is going to be a nickel for the future of this team, to be honest with you. Okay, he missed a lot of time. He missed the whole offseason program. He got to the joint practice during the Patriots and only made one preseason game. But we saw the flash just from one preseason game, and people were like, he didn't do anything. He didn't, I see this guy as a safety. I see him as a rangy, Swiss Army knife, Malcolm Jenkins type player that bandages up your defense and covers any weaknesses when it comes to injury, when it comes to bad coverage. I think you can use him and move him all over the place. So many players are coming back. The reinforcements, we have never had a secondary like this. Okay, I think it won't take much for the Eagles to add to this defensive line in the future, but when it comes to our secondary, I think they are set. And I think Cooper DeJean, I think, should have a bigger role after this season. This season, they have no choice to keep him at that nickel because Eli Ricks doesn't play the inside. Some of these Rodgers don't play the inside. Keely Ringo don't play the inside. That's probably the biggest problem right now. I think they need more, nickel corners. Unfortunately, inside corners. Unfortunately, but he has been a prized possession. Maddox not being in the secondary, it's crazy. Maddox at this point, is a backup safety, backup nickel for Cooper DeJean right now. This is a guy that actually left the Eagles. They didn't even try to get money back for him. He left the Philadelphia Eagles. They released him. He tried out for the Saints. No one had interest in him. He came back, and I really wasn't a big fan of it, but, he's finally healthy, but he's just not playing at a high level. He's just taking a turn in his career right now, and, I think they need to have massive upgrades at this position for the future, and Cooper DeJean, man, has been a shining light, is the best tackler in the secondary, is a superstar. This is a guy that's a first-round talent, drafted in the second round because that draft, there was 14 or what? Till pick 14 or 15, there was 14, 15 offensive players taking off the board, which put another player in the Eagles' lap, jumping in front of the Green Bay Packers, picking him up at the right time. And that's where we are with Cooper DeJean as of right now, and he has been probably Quinyon Mitchell, obviously, too. Quinyon Mitchell giving less than 100 yards so far. It's been a lot lower. I don't know the specific number, but I'm going to say it's definitely under 100 yards. He hasn't given up over that at all. Teams are not wanting to throw his way. There was a play in the game versus the Bengals where Joe Burrow actually did a double fake, did a pump fake with the ball, and was going to go to Ja'Marr Chase. Quinyon Mitchell was right on him, could not go to him at all. So it's looking really good. Every week is a test, and Quinyon Mitchell is killing it, and Cooper DeJean is killing it. And these first two picks look like superstars right now. And we've never lived in a time with the Eagles where the secondary has been this good over the line. I feel like, yes, it's really hard to find. It's very hard to find and produce guys in the secondary at a high level. Christian Parker at the cornerback coach that worked with Fangio in Denver. That guy should have a raise. That whatever that guy's been doing with the cornerback group has been absolutely fantastic. It's been awesome to see and watch, and very happy for it. So Cooper DeJean, a lot of these other players in the secondary, I don't think it's as hard to build. I don't think it's hard to build a defensive line. I think it's really hard to find those players. I think it's really hard to find those players in the secondary that are really going to stand out, and that's the hardest thing to do. And the Eagles have crushed it when it comes to the secondary, the depth behind it. But involving cornerback, especially, Isaiah Rodgers is in a fascinating situation right now. Where when Slay got hurt, and I don't hooray for injuries at all. Slay has had a fantastic year. Don't get me wrong about it. I might question his things, what he does outside of football, things that he says since last year, and things that he's done this year as well. But I got to say, Isaiah Rodgers has been, and Eagle fans, don't tell me you weren't agreeing to this, because I'm telling you right now, people are looking at Isaiah Rodgers on the bench with Slay sitting there as a starter, and everybody's saying Isaiah Rodgers is being wasted sitting on the bench right now. Because realistically, if Isaiah Rodgers didn't mess up his hand before the first game, Quinyon Mitchell would have been that nickel spot. He would have been in that inside corner spot, and everybody would have been furious over it. I mean, furious over it. And then we wouldn't have seen Quinyon Mitchell at outside corner number 2 this year. Now, I don't know how long, Slay is going to be out. They're not going to bench Slay if Rodgers is playing out of his mind well, but this guy is 24 years old, 24, 25. I mean, he's young. You literally picked up a starter from the gambling stuff that happened last year, took off the whole entire year, was suspended the whole entire year. The Eagles were the only team that had interest in Isaiah Rodgers. They gave him a chance. And it seems like Isaiah Rodgers is taking that to heart and saying, you know what, all these teams are going to make a big mistake. Because, half these teams probably had no interest in Isaiah Rodgers because guys are coming off these gambling suspensions and they're going to be lazy players. They're not going to focus on coming back. And he was really focused. He was watching every Eagles game every week. He was working out. He was showing pictures to the fans on the social media that he was working his fucking tail off. He was in the off season, this past off season, talking shit on social media, saying, I'm coming back. I'm never getting off this field. You'll never see me off this field ever again. I'm going to make this team. And he did. Getting an opportunity in this Bengals game for Slay and played amazing. Kept with Jamar Chase on the right sideline and slapped the ball towards Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to get that pick. I mean, I have no issue with Isaiah Rodgers playing. I really don't, because realistically, Isaiah Rodgers is a free agent after this year. Okay? Slay is either going to get traded at the end of the season if he wants to play for another team, okay, or he's going to retire, one or the other, okay? You're going to have Quinyon Mitchell is going to be your number one guy, come next season. But what do you do now? As much as I am a big fan of re-signing Isaiah Rodgers for one reason, and I feel like some of the players, especially defensively, especially at the cornerback group, Eli Ricks is obviously a player that's had starting capability, but I think is more of a press corner than he is more of a zone type corner. Keely Ringo is a guy that I feel like has the physical attributes as a football player, but I just don't think his coverage is as good as everyone says it is. He had a really good offseason program. Not saying he can't cover. I think his hips get turned around too slow. I think he's just a little heavy at times in his coverage. But that's why I really want Keely Ringo to cross train at safety as well, because I think as a safety he'd be really good. But he has that physical nature to him, but I think needs a little bit more work. Okay, Isaiah Rodgers is a starter, is a 3-year starter pretty much that you brought onto this team with a special teams pedigree at kick return. So Isaiah Rodgers, I think, has to be look, you're hoping he doesn't do too good because you don't want to pay him highest paid corner in the league. No, definitely not. I think he does just enough to where you give him a lump sum of cash, nothing crazy, but I think it's the perfect time to sign Isaiah Rodgers because you just got Cooper DeJean. You just signed Cooper DeJean, just got drafted this year. Just signed Quinyon Mitchell. He's got 4 years and a 5th-year option. So I think this is a perfect sign to re-sign Isaiah Rodgers after this year. Zach Bond and Isaiah Rodgers are probably my top 2 signings I really want re-signed after this year. Those are my top 2 guys, okay? because of the other contracts and how much availability. We don't have to pay Quignon for a while. We don't have to pay Cooper DeJean for a while. So the Eagles have time to re-sign Rodgers, keep him in the building for a few years. I just think he's more fluid and he's just better than Keely Ringo. Not saying Keely Ringo can't get up to that, but I just think as the word stands right now, Isaiah Rodgers is the dude. And that's why, as of right now, even if Slay comes back, you can always count on Isaiah Rodgers to be in there. God forbid anything happens again to Slay during the year because of injury, and watch out for all that. So I have no issue with Isaiah Rodgers. I've wanted him on the field. I'm not saying, oh, I'm so glad Slay is injured. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, like, I don't feel like, oh my God, we're panicking at cornerback. I'm not panicking at the position at all. Isaiah Rodgers is going to play well. So very happy for him to get his opportunity. And this will start to give other teams notice now. He's playing for himself for another contract. Fred Johnson is playing for a contract. I think he's a free agent as well, so he'll be a free agent after this year. He signed a 2-year deal last year. He signed a 2-year deal last off season. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll find out when the time comes. And that's my take on Isaiah Rodgers and feeling really good about it going forward. But other than that, guys, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about the Fangio news. Not getting a high price trade, giving up a lot of draft compensation, but getting a guy they can get for a few years. Is that fair? I think it is. I think Fangio is having more control over what they do in season, which is great. It's not all Howie Roseman. I think Fangio has had a lot more control than we realize when it comes to this defense and what he wants. And I think he wants to change the ways of how the Eagles have been doing it, and that he wants to produce guys, get them better every week. Because every year they get better, every game they get better. I like that a lot. Instead of panicking and go getting a Myles Garrett and go getting a Max Crosby, giving away the farm for a guy to rent for a year. You know, like I'm just not into it. I'm not feeling it. So Darius Smith for an older type guy, sure. If that's the route they want to go, we'll see what teams Howie does call, the interest level, and what happens there. Fangio's got all of the control. Let me know what you guys think about Isaiah Rodgers over Slay. How do you feel about the situation? Who would be your re-sign candidates after this season? Would Isaiah Rodgers be that? Do you like Isaiah Rodgers over Keely Ringo? Comment like crazy down below in the comment section below. This video is sponsored by BetUS. I want to thank them for sponsoring this video. And if you guys definitely subscribe to the channel for Eagles news every single day, and definitely like the stream. It helps out. Like the video. It helps out tremendously with the channel. And I want to thank everybody for joining to listen today. You guys let me know in the comment section below. I will see you guys at the next one. Shake squad up, fly Eagles fly. Peace out, guys. Peace.